Hello, I'm Rebecca McFarland, the archivist for the Sisters of the Living Word in Arlington Heights, Illinois. I'm sure my fellow lone arrangers for small institutions will forgive the lack of polish on this video. There's not much I can do, for example, about the bright light overhead, and I'm hoping to record in between the loud bouts of air conditioning that occur from right over my door. So here's hoping we do what we can with what we have. So I've been here at the Sisters of the Living Word for a bit over 2 years now, and it's a permanent part-time position. As such, I supplement my schedule by taking on project archivist positions and working as an independent bookbinder. Because I take on so many project-based positions, I have more than my fair share of first days and adjustment periods. Those are the times my imposter syndrome really manifests. I feel as though I always knew what imposter syndrome was, even if I didn't know the exact name until a few years ago. Many of my female friends battle it constantly, and even a few of my cis male friends struggle with it. I come from a happy group of old school nerds, very Dungeons and Dragons, very video games, and though I don't know whether there's a direct correlation, it does feel as though we are often working to lift each other up, to push each other beyond that inner voice saying that you are not enough, you don't know enough, why bother? When the opportunity to participate in a panel on imposter syndrome at MAC arose, I was incredibly excited. I had never before spoken about the topic with other archivists, and even just the email interactions made it all worth it, let alone the panel itself. The opportunity also allowed me to really focus on what form my imposter syndrome takes, on where it could have come from. I've often thought about that catalyst. Although I can't put my finger on a direct origin, I do know that racial isolation is at the very least a latent presence in all the ways my imposter syndrome manifests. It's interesting looking over my education, where I think this began. The higher the level, the more expensive this education became, and the less diverse the education became. I feel as though if I graphed out my years of education from kindergarten to grad school, there would be 3 staggering downward spikes with respect to diversity, and that would be elementary and middle school to high school became less diverse, that to college, and college to grad school. And this culminated in grad school with the fact that I only ever met 2 Black women in my entire year and a half at library school. They both graduated before me, but I was lucky to make friends with several of the other racial minorities there and to share experiences and things like that. But it always felt like there was some sort of highlighter on me, like I was not in a place necessarily meant for me, and that I was there as some sort of token. And I know several of them felt the same way. For example, you always find yourself in the brochure photograph, in the website photograph, basically anytime there's a front page situation. It's also, frankly, unnerving to be in a situation when you are learning something new, in itself a state of vulnerability, only to look around the room and to see that you're the only in the room. I have found this sentiment to carry forward in new career individuals, which I was at the time, when you need to network around a room and you're the only. So coming out of school in January of 2014, leaving library school, graduating library school, it was difficult to find a paying archive job in the Chicago area. As anyone knows, that spiral of apply and get rejected, apply and get rejected, apply and get, it's real, and it's not great for self-esteem. And what's more, it will pile up on any of the insecurities you may already have. So this, combined with that leftover feeling of isolation from library school, had me feeling as though the archives profession did not want me specifically. I was even more confused because I had already had incredibly positive intern experiences at 2 institutions and high praise from my professors. But none of that knowledge that I had, that I was good at certain aspects of this position, none of that could stand up against the fact that in the face of these constant rejections, I just didn't feel like I fit the idea of an archivist. So this time period led to my conclusion of, I guess I'm not cut out to be an archivist, despite the positivity of my past experiences. So in 2015, I actually quit the job hunt and gave up on becoming an archivist, despite having gotten the degree, instead focusing on my career as a bookbinder, for which I was in the middle of a part-time apprenticeship at the time. Now, as a sidebar, that's not to say that the field of conservation and bookbinding is more diverse or better with diversity. It is not, but I just already had a job at the time and I could rely on a tangible rate of success. So luckily, well, and that's an imposter syndrome thing, luckily, we'll scratch that out. In late 2016, I idly checked a job board and decided to apply as a temporary archives aide position to supplement my bookbinding income. It was a great job, and the archivist, Drew Davis, suggested a long list of different associations that I could sign up for and subscribe to. There I found forums and chapters of people, Chicago area archivists, archives and archivists of color, and even just pockets of SAA, who not only look like me, but who also excel in their field. And honestly, sometimes just looking at a picture of the person posting in a forum is enough to give me confidence. It takes away that feeling of being the only in the room. So when I had a moment in 2017, when I began at the Sisters of the Living Word, when I sat at my desk thinking, I've made a huge mistake, I cannot be an archivist, and I certainly cannot be the only archivist, I was able to follow that up by looking at the archivists who were making it, at individuals with experience and knowledge and a willingness to help me out and to answer my questions. I could start to see myself in this space and gain confidence that I should be here. I know I should be here. What's more, once I felt as though I belonged in this space, I wanted to work harder and harder to make others feel like the archives could and should be their space as well. And now, of course, I know there are people in the field who also have imposter syndrome, who I can reach out to and talk with, and they can help me as much as I can help them. As a last note, as time goes on, I've looked back over this education of mine and the decades that I've been a scholarship recipient. I began receiving scholarships when I was 13 years old. All of these scholarships were either economically or racially based. I want to make it clear that I am exceedingly grateful for these opportunities. What's more, applying for and receiving scholarships as an adult has allowed me to attend conferences and career-oriented classes in a way that my institution could not otherwise provide for. Unsurprisingly, scholarships are indeed an incredible resource. That said, I believe more can be done to make it clear to young recipients that their income and/or race and heritage are only part of why they are here, part of why they are receiving aid. When I work with scholarship students today, many of whom fall in the 13 to 14-year age range, I try to make it clear that they are in a space they are in because of their intelligence, integrity, and ability. A scholarship is merely an equalizer. The rest is up to them. This is something that I am still working to internalize, but I'm hoping that by addressing this early, and in our case as adults, addressing it often, we can begin to disentangle ourselves from imposter syndrome. As we work to diversify our field, this will become more and more important. So, addressing my own imposter syndrome is still a work in progress, and I still have waves of imposter syndrome. In particular, these days, I find that I'm very hard on myself for mistakes, often seeing it as a sign of not being a good archivist. But knowing where to catch myself and that I can talk to others and where to turn to feel less isolated makes all the difference. For those reasons, my suggestion on where to start is a simple one. Find a fellow archivist you can speak to when you're finding it hard to hold on to your confidence. Even finding someone in another career can help greatly. One of my friends is a Black woman in tech, and we have plenty to talk about. It's a frightening idea in itself, voicing your insecurities to others, but it can make a huge difference, both for you and for those you share with. Thank you.